Hey, Scott here from whattype.com, and a question came through on Quora that I thought was a good question that will apply to a lot of people, so hopefully I can offer some good insight to you if this applies to you. So the question is there any way that an INFJ can become more extroverted? Yes, I'm an INFJ who has become more extroverted, and what I'm going to say will apply not just to INFJs, but to pretty much any introvert who wants to be more comfortable in social situations. So to start with, just to kind of agree on the theory and the language and the framing of what we're talking about. So according to the cognitive function theory of understanding personality, introverts will never actually become extroverts. We're always going to be more comfortable in, it's just going to always, the inner world will always just kind of feel more real to us in a sense. We're never going to, like flip the circuitry of our brain so that we're actually extroverts. I'm not saying that any of this stuff is impossible or that this is the way it is in objective reality, but I'm just saying this is a useful model, I think, for understanding this sort of thing, and this is kind of where I'm coming from. So really what it comes down to is becoming more comfortable in social situations. I think that's really what we're getting at. So that's specifically what I'm going to be talking about. How can an introvert become more comfortable in social situations? So the first tip I want to give here is cognitive behavioral therapy. So this is a type of therapy that you can actually give to yourself. Years ago I joined an online program. I don't think it exists anymore, so unfortunately I can't recommend it. However, this is the kind of thing you can learn from YouTube. You don't need to pay someone $300 an hour every week, for the next 2 years. Or you can just learn how to do this. So this is a process of questioning our thoughts. So this actually originated with Socrates. So basically what it is, in a sense, is installing the voice of Socrates in our minds to challenge our thoughts and break them down so that they become more conscious and they don't elicit the same physiological response. So what will happen when we go into a challenging social situation where we might have some anxiety is that these, nebulous fears and thoughts are going to come up, and they're going to make us, feel a certain way that already kind of puts us at a disadvantage. But what we can do is challenge these thoughts, so like we'll have these thoughts like, this sort of thing always happens, or if this happens, then it's going to mean that, so this is just a process of unpacking these things and then challenging them. Like, does that always happen? Are you sure that, can you read the other person's mind? So it just breaks these things down so that they don't have as much control over us. So I can tell you, I personally found that very helpful. I recommend it. You can just go on YouTube and learn it, or you can find people who can teach it to you and do it with you locally, but you just need to kind of install that kind of thinking and get into the habit of doing it. So something that's very doable and I think very useful. The second tip is to give yourself, before you go into a situation, give yourself a sort of pep talk. Just decide on a constructive way to frame this situation before you get started. So just decide, I learned this from a performance coach named Stephen Memel. So what he said was that, when you go into a performance, just make the decision that you're going to frame it in a way that you're proud of yourself for having done it, and that you are going to feel good when it's over. So just you can frame things in infinite ways. So just when you go into a situation, decide, I'm going to be proud of myself for having done this. No matter what, I'm going to see all of this as progress. And if you start from that frame, you really can't lose. It's when you're always constructive, you can always continue to build on any success. Okay, number 3. find a good reason to start talking to more people and being more social. So a couple things come to mind for me. So for one, when I was being trained to be a profiler, to help people arrive at their Myers-Briggs type, there's the active profiling component where this is we do a live interactive session like on Skype or in person, and then there's the passive profiling component to it where based on limited information you can figure out a person's type based on clues that they give off. And both of these kind of feed into each other. If you have good training and a good process at both of these, one will make you better at the other. So the passive profiling component to it, I became obsessed with the idea of being able to figure out people's types as fast and as accurately as possible, because I just had this conviction that this was an area where not enough work had been done, and to me it was exciting. The idea that you can just, based on limited information, because the idea is that people are always giving off clues about their type. So, I became obsessed with that mission of being able to be as close to omniscient as possible and figure out people's types as quickly as possible. Well, the only way I knew, the only way that I was going to get any good at that was by talking to a lot of strangers. So this was something I'd never done before in my life. It was kind of terrifying. But after a little while, it became a lot easier, but I was compelled, I had enough of a reason, so if I had an intuition about someone's type, I had to ask them, so I started a lot of conversations with, I know this is a strange question, but, so like, for example, someone sat down next to me one time and I couldn't see his face, but just like the energy, like immediately I was like, this guy's an ISFP, I just know it. So I just had to start that conversation. And doing this over and over again, you just get better at it. You get smoother at it. You start to, it's the kind of thing where, it's about them. And if you keep it about them, and people love to talk about themselves, you can pull it off. You can pull off anything. Really, what it comes down to is it's about the energy. It's about the energy that you have when you're interacting with people, and you get there by practice. So having a good enough reason, whatever that might be, will take you a long way, because I would not have started those conversations if I wasn't compelled to. Another thing that comes to mind for me when I think about this is, so I do this thing called Sandwich Party Sunday, and that's it's basically, this started in Hollywood, California, and there were hungry people all over the place. So long story short, the thought was, well, we have all the food in the world, and there are hungry people on the streets. Why don't we just throw a party, have a good time, make sandwiches, and then take them to people? So, I was originally just going to do this by myself. I got donations. It was too much money, so I posted something on Facebook, and I had a couple of people come down and help. And what was interesting is they're both INFJ, and I'm also INFJ. And funny thing has happened. So we've done this, tons of times since then, and it's spread. And I have met more INFJs than you can imagine doing this. So if you want to meet INFJs specifically, throw a sandwich party. If you're interested in doing this sort of thing, you can go to sandwichpartysunday.com, and I would be more than happy to do anything I can to help you do that. But that sort of thing is a great excuse. For one, talking to people who we would feed. It's a great. There's no better opener, way to start a conversation than I have, something. I have something I made for you. And then also getting together with friends, it's a great excuse. It's just a great premise. It brings out the best in people, and you'll find that awesome people want to do it. So number 4, have a simple go-to opener. So for me, I just, my go-to, doesn't matter if it's a man or if it's a woman, whatever, doesn't matter. No thought required, nothing. How's your night going? How's your day going? That's it. That's simple. And it's about the energy. It's just about the energy with which you ask it. You know, if you're in a good mood and you feel good and you just like, you don't need to worry about anything else, period. And then you just kind of play off it. You just play off of whatever their response is. And this is something you get better at over time. You know, certainly, you know, not long ago, my head would have been full of chatter and I would have been nervous and it would have been a little bit more difficult. But just doing it a few times, you get used to it. And your mind becomes more clear when you just say, like, hey, you know, how's your night going? And then you're actually tuned into what they say, and it's just a great way to start. You just go with it. You know, it's just a good natural way to lead into a conversation, and you know, it's really just all about the energy. It's not about any particular outcome. Like, you might, you know, say hi, exchange a few words, and then never talk to each other again, or you might become best friends. It really doesn't, you know, to me, when I start one of those conversations, it really doesn't matter. Finally, ask people's names. So this one is huge. This one is transformative for me. So this started a couple of years ago. I went to a store and bought something with a credit card, and as I'm about to leave, the man behind the counter says, "Thank you, Scott, have a good day." And I was like, taken aback. I was like, what? So I realized what he did. I said, you know, "Thank you." And I was like, "What's your name?" And I couldn't make out what he said, so I asked him again, and you know, he puts his fingers together like that. It says money. I was like, oh, like that is money. So that stuck with me. So I was like, that was cool. Like, that felt cool. So I just started doing that with everyone. So normally, you know, I'm a hermit by nature, or at least, you know, for most of my life I have been. So I just started doing, you know, I would go, you know, normally to the same store 1,000 times, and I would never get to know anybody's name. Like, it just never would occur to me. But now all of a sudden I just started asking everybody's name, and then I created a cheat sheet on my phone. So I have an iPhone, so I go in the Notes app and just, you know, put in, you know, Don, you know, guy at the, you know, from, you know, Puerto Rico at such and such place, you know, like whatever, you know, I could get to remember them by, so that when I went back to, like, if I'd go back to the same place where I thought I'd see someone, I'd go through and be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's the name. When you do this as a habit, funny things happen. You know, it's, you walk into a place and everybody knows your name and you know all their names, and that you don't have to do anything else. Like, there's, like, it's just magic. It's the coolest magic trick I know of. And just naturally what happens is you start looking out for each other. You know, you tell each other what's going on in the neighborhood. People will give you stuff for free. Like, you want, I mean, for me it was just revelatory. Like, the whole thing, just walking through my neighborhood where it felt like all of a sudden everybody knew me. Yeah, that is my favorite magic trick. So hopefully that helps. If you are an introvert, if you're you know, if you're trying to figure out if you're an introvert, if you're trying to figure out your type and you'd like some help, or honestly, if you'd just like to talk about this stuff, you can book a Skype session with me if you go to whattype.com/mytype. And if you're interested in lessons, on how to be able to tell what myers-briggs type other people are, you can go to whattype.com/lessons. And if you like this sort of video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.